A very good morning to you. I'm Howard Feldman. This is the Sunday Synthesis podcast with me, Howard Feldman, and of course, Dr. Anton Meyberg. As you know, we have moved the podcasts to every second week. Hopefully, we'll be able to remain in that pattern as the numbers are low here in South Africa. Dr. Anton Meyberg, I see that you are at the hospital, obviously a weekend on call. How's it going?
Morning. Weekend on call. Numbers aren't too bad. We generally find when there's a public holiday or there's a long weekend, for some reason the numbers in the hospital are quite low, and that's okay at the moment. COVID numbers are very low at the moment. There are currently 247 million cases worldwide with 5 million deaths and 223 million cases resolved. The United States has 46 million cases with 766,000 deaths. India, 34 million cases with 458,000 deaths, and South Africa has 2,921,886 cases with 89,163 deaths and 300 new cases in the last 24 hours, a 1.2% test positivity rate. There are currently 1,415 patients in the Gauteng with COVID, of which 204 are in ICU and 99 are on ventilators. And the total doses for vaccination in the country are 22 million, with the amount of adults fully vaccinated, 12.3 million, 30%, and the amount of 12 to 17-year-olds, 130,000, a dismal 2%.
Is that 130,000 very low, considering it hasn't been open for a long time, but is that number a surprise to you, or is that what you would have expected so far?
So no, it's not actually that surprising. I think there's a lot of reticence around exams, around final sporting events. People don't want to vaccinate just yet. And I think the number will go up. And I think as sort of the exams come to an end and as the major sporting sort of end of year events come to an end, then people are going to decide whether or not to vaccinate soon. And of course, people want to be vaccinated when they go on holiday. So people are going to boost their vaccination rates at a higher rate. I think it's also all about the fact that parents need to be comfortable vaccinating their children and need to be informed and educated of why it's so important and how safe it really is.
All right, we are going to speak about kids and vaccines in a little bit more detail in just a few moments. But in terms of COVID at the hospitals, are you seeing any cases?
So we haven't had any cases. We had one inadvertent case about a week or two ago, which wasn't really a case that needs to be in hospital, but the patient wasn't well and it just felt better to keep the patient there. So I wouldn't say we've had any serious cases. We're doing very well overall. The majority of cases in Johannesburg aren't in hospital, so none of us are seeing many cases at this point in time regarding that needing hospitalization.
So can you explain how this works? Why does this just magically disappear? Is it because we've reached herd immunity? Is it because I don't get it. How do we go from that number down to 500 new cases a day in a whole country?
So it's a very good question then. And we speak a lot about the R0, which is the average number of people infected by one case. Now we know with Delta, it's 2 to 3 times more infectious. And then the R0 of Delta is about 5 to 6. So 5 to 6 people get infected by one case. What we don't speak about is another parameter called kappa. And this actually relates to the infectiveness of the disease and the pattern of transmission of the disease. In other words, whether it spreads in a uniform pattern or is it in explosive clusters. So do most people usually spread the disease to the same number of people, or do only a small proportion of people do most of the spreading? And we've learned that the kappa for COVID is actually very small. So as few as 10% of infected people contribute as much as 80% of the spread. Hashtag super spreading events, hashtag rage, hashtag we need to curtail super spreading events. And the virus takes advantage of human behavior. So if we let our guard down, when there's a lull in cases, the virus takes advantage of that. And that's why we get almost like this massive decrease in cases. People are following the rules. People are wearing their masks. There's nowhere for the virus to go. It can't attack other people. And of course, now we're also seeing an increase in the number of vaccinations. So the virus is at a low. And then you get one super spreading event, for instance, as I say again, rage, and all hell will break loose.
Just spell kappa for me.
KAPPA.
And does it stand for something?
No, it's another Greek. It's another one of the Greek alphabet.
Wow. I find the Greeks are a little obsessed with this whole COVID thing. Have you noticed that? I mean, no disrespect to the ancient Greeks, but I don't know. They definitely are very involved here.
Somewhere there in the Pantheon, there's like a little
exactly
drawing on the wall there, yes, with the COVID virus.
I think we're mixing up a whole lot of different histories, but it doesn't really matter. It's also okay. We don't mind. We're not pretending to be
not history buffs.
Experts, exactly. But very, very interesting that, because I hadn't heard that. I actually thought it was just a brand of clothing, but maybe that's just me. Right. So talking about vaccines and children, we've seen a tremendous amount of strong reaction to originally the 12 to 18 years old. Now the FDA has approved 5 years old and up. Wow. Parents are quite militant in this way.
Yeah. So as you correctly said, the FDA has authorized the use of the Pfizer vaccine in the 5 to 11-year-olds. And what they're doing, they're giving a 10 microgram dose, which is 1/3 of the dose given to adults, 2 doses given 3 weeks apart. Now, let me ask you a question. What do you know about smallpox?
Well, thankfully,
not much,
very little.
I'm assuming.
Nothing.
Right. And what do you know about polio?
Also, blessedly little.
And why is that? And that's because we eradicated the viruses with vaccination. You don't hear parents saying when their children are born, no, don't give them DPT, which is diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus. Don't give them the measles. Don't give them the meningitis vaccine. Don't give them hepatitis vaccines. Why is it that parents aren't interested in what makes up these vaccines, but yet now all of a sudden, everyone's so interested in how this vaccine works, it's going to affect my child. Whereas we know, once again, once there's a lull in the virus and there's a lull in people actually protecting themselves and not vaccinating themselves, there's going to be an uptick of the virus. And here we've got an almost effective method to try and stop the virus from going out of control and to try and stop hospitalizations. I mean, if we look, if and when a fourth wave comes, and we do believe it is going to come, it's going to decimate the healthcare system from the point of view that you've got doctors with post-traumatic stress, you've got overworked nurses, you've got overworked allied physiotherapists, dietitians, all the people who are working in the health professions that have just actually had enough of what's going on and can't handle it anymore. And here you've got something that is there to actually help you to stop the spread of the virus. It's a no-brainer.
I've heard people saying, well, you know, I'm going to wait until my kids are fully grown, and I'm going to wait until, and it's a new vaccine. I'm not experimenting on my child. What's your reaction to that?
So we're not experimenting on anyone's child. You know, yes, it's a new vaccine, and no, they haven't sort of taken out any sort of major steps in actually formulating the vaccine. They've been working on mRNA vaccines for many years. But now they've Operation Warp Speed the vaccine, especially in the United States and all over the world, to actually get an effective vaccine to treat us. So instead of rather saying, wow, we're now in a situation where we've got something in an armamentarium to actually fight against it, people are saying, no, rather wait, rather be part of the problem. Let's see what other people like do and what happens to them, and we'll be part of the problem, not knowingly being part of this sort of, I'm not saying anti-vaxxers, because I don't believe these people are anti-vaxxers, but they're also part of a controlled study then, because we can see by not vaccinating what's going to happen to them.
Right. So people have asked me if I would vaccinate my child between 5 to 12. And I've said to them, I don't have, my youngest is 16, but we actually are considering having another child just so we could vaccinate them, which I think is a nice, you know, shows some level of commitment to the vaccine.
I actually can't even answer that. Okay. Anyway, let's just take that thought of you having another child out of our head. Okay. And let's take somebody who has got young children. Yes.
Right. Would you vaccinate your 5?
My 8-year-old and my 11-year-old would be vaccinated without doubt. It's not even a question.
Okay. So, I mean, that says it. That says it. Let's also just talk about things like end-of-year summer camps. I know that a lot of people are worrying about it. Should their kids go? Shouldn't their kids go? Obviously, having a vaccine plays an important part in this decision, I would imagine.
Right. So I think it's also, once again, it's a very emotive decision. I can have my opinion on whether or not I should send my own kids or not, but I can't make the decisions for other people. That being said, when I look at a camp, like I've actually dealt quite a bit into B'nai Akiva, and I looked at the protocols are exemplary. They're unbelievable. They're tight, they're fit, they're to the point. Would I be happy to send my child? At this point, no. And why not? Because I believe the children have to have 2 vaccines. If they've had 2 vaccines, then I'm high up on the list of saying I want to send my child. With 1 vaccine, I'm not as happy yet. Take that aside. As I said, the protocols are excellent. Minimal children per tent, so maybe 1, 2 to maximum 3 children per tent. Children will be kept in bubbles. Each age group will be kept in different sort of areas, so there's no intermingling of the kids. It's a shorter time period. PCR test before they go on camp, a rapid test when they actually get to the camp. If there is a problem, they will isolate the kids in a quarantine area on the campsite. So it's possible. It's obviously going to be a different type of camp than has been before. It is possible to do, and it is very possible to do. But as I said, I would feel happier if my kids had got a 2nd vaccine before they went.
Just as a matter of interest, a personal question, is it a lot of pressure on your family with people watching what you do with your kids?
Massive pressure, especially for my wife. You know, everyone's asking, what is your husband doing? What are you doing? And if you're doing that, and if the Meybergs are doing this, then it's okay to. If the Meybergs aren't doing that, it's not okay to. So it's a massive pressure. And that's why, you know, you've got to be very comfortable with the decisions we make, knowing that there's a lot of people watching what we do.
And I imagine you don't get invited out much anymore.
What's that?
Right. Okay. Also, tremendous amount of questions around the booster doses. Let's start with healthcare workers. I saw that healthcare workers are allowed to receive a booster from sometime soon.
Right. So the Sasonke trial has enabled healthcare workers to receive a booster J&J if you had your first J&J at the beginning part of the year. And that will be from the 8th of November. That's fantastic. We all need the boosters. However, I'm still holding to the point that personally, I would prefer to get a Pfizer booster rather than a J&J. For myself, working on the front line, it's a more robust, it gives a better immune response, but there's nothing wrong at all with getting a J&J vaccine.
Okay, but because you've said this quite consistently over the last as many months, is that you like the idea of mixing the vaccines. Can you just explain?
Mixing and matching is very important because you get a better response. You get a better immune response from 2 different types of vaccines. It's what you call a more robust response. That being said, remember the Sasonke trial is only Johnson & Johnson. So they're only going to offer you Johnson & Johnson. They're not going to offer you any other vaccines. So it's not saying that it's wrong to do either of that, but you've got to go with the trial that you're using. If you don't have a choice and they're only going to be offering a Pfizer booster to healthcare workers, let's say end of December, beginning of January, then I would say go for the Johnson & Johnson now. You know, we need to be protected. We need our healthcare professionals to be protected, and we need everyone to be protected. In fact, there's a study that came out in the Lancet Journal of which they saw that they took 728,000 people with 3 shots versus over 728,000 people with 2 shots. And there was a 93% reduction in hospitalization in the 3-shot group.
Wow. Absolutely incredible. If you have a Johnson & Johnson and a Pfizer, is that considered 3 shots or 2 shots?
So, you know, initially, remember, we always said that the Johnson & Johnson was as if it was 2 shots. But data has come out that you definitely need a booster for your Johnson & Johnson. At this point in time, the 2 Johnson & Johnsons are considered as if they are 3 shots because that's considered as a booster.
Okay.
So there's no data out to show, however, that if you've had a Johnson & Johnson and a Pfizer, do you need another booster? At this point in time, I would say probably not, but you would wait, 3 to 4 months maybe and recheck your antibodies to see where you're at and to see if you actually need to boost. I'm sure down the line, we're still all going to need to boost. I mean, in fact, I saw a talk the other day of people saying that immune compromised people are going to need a 4th booster down the line, 6 months down the line, which does make sense because their immunity is much weaker, their antibodies drop much quicker, and they are going to need better protection.
Right. So it does seem as though this is just going to be something that we live with these constant booster shots.
100%.
What about the people who have received 2 Pfizers, some of them now going on, the older population in South Africa now might be reaching a 5 month. I spoke to somebody today and she said, I said, when was your last Pfizer? And she said to me about 5 months ago. So we're starting to see a lot of our population entering into that. And that's in fact when we saw numbers increasing in Israel as well, didn't we?
Right. And that's why we actually need to push for the boosting, especially the people over the age of 60 with comorbidities and people who need a third booster. It's becoming an eventuality now and a reality. We need to push for it because we don't want another wave to come as badly. And as we know, going into December, going into the holidays, people are much more localized in one area, going outside together, inside together, dropping the sort of routines of the protection, and we need to protect people more effectively.
Should we be having antibody tests? I mean, as a hypochondriac, I'm a bit uncomfortable that I've never had one. Do I need to go today?
I don't believe so. No, I really don't believe it's necessary. The point is, though, that if you are a healthcare worker, and let's say you've had your Pfizer, and let's say you've had your J&J, and then 3 months after that, there's a new wave coming out, hopefully not, but something is developing and you're worried about it, then you can go and check and see what your antibody levels are. But I wouldn't do it as the norm. I don't believe it's necessary, and I wouldn't advocate it.
Okay. In terms of people planning holidays, what are you seeing in terms of the data, 4th wave? We are now 1 day away from November. This is when South Africans start to get hysterical and anxious about our December holidays. It is, I think, looking reasonable, but I'm not sure how the data works in terms of how long an increase to a 4th wave takes. How's it looking in your view?
Yeah, if there's one thing I've always said about this COVID, it makes fools of us all the time. We never can predict any of these things. So initially, I remember we were saying the 3rd wave won't be so bad. It's not an issue until the Delta variant came along and basically kicked us in the backside and taught us a lesson. So we can't predict what's going to happen. There's different scenarios that can come out. Will there be a 4th wave with a new variant? Will the Delta variant be the issue with the 4th wave and only affect the unvaccinated? Will the subvariant AY.42, which is affecting 10% of people in the United Kingdom, be an issue, and even though it's a variant of interest? So we don't know what these actual variants are going to do and whether or not it's going to be sooner than later. We do know that it is going to happen, and we don't know the veracity or how bad it's going to be, but it's going to happen. So personally, I would plan for a holiday, but we've also got to take into account a few super spreading events like elections tomorrow. That's a big,
we'll talk about that in
worry.
A moment.
And then, of course, as I always say, rage, which was the massive catalyst of the super spreading event last year, which delved us into the 2nd wave and put us into huge turmoil. Hashtag rage equals hashtag closed beaches.
Yeah, and don't get us started on that because it's not pretty. Let's just talk about, let's talk about voting for a second, because in fact, there's 2 subjects about voting that we want to talk about. The first is that we have been nominated for the Absa Jewish Achievers Awards. That is happening next Sunday, and voting is now open for that. If you do watch the podcast, if you do enjoy it, and you do think we deserve it, you'll see a link below where all you need to do is click and vote for us. Please consider doing that if you think we are deserving of it. The second voting, of course, is happening tomorrow, and that is the local government elections. We are absolutely urging everybody to get out there and vote. Take your own pen with you. I spoke to the IEC last week, and they said they will provide pens, a black pen. You do need to take a black pen with you if you're going to take your own. They will provide and they will sanitize the pens, but just to be a little bit more safe and COVID aware, take your own pen. They're very happy for you to do that. They've put a lot of measures in place in terms of they'll be monitoring distancing, they'll be sanitizing people as you go in, but it is important to go and vote. Dr. Meyberg, what are your thoughts on tomorrow? Are you concerned about it becoming potentially a super spreader event?
Yes, I am very concerned about it. I mean, I'm also concerned about the rallies that have been happening this weekend, which are huge super spreading events. It's amazing, though, I have to say this, though, that everyone's making a big hoo-ha about rage, but no one's actually making a hoo-ha about the rallies that have also predated it.
100%.
So that's also something to worry about. But
100%.
with regards to the voting tomorrow, as you said, I think it's extremely important that every single person gets out there and votes tomorrow. There's a way to do it safely. And the most efficacious or safe way to do it is, if you are elderly, if you're over the age of 60, wear an N95 mask if you can. If not, wear a mask plus a visor when you go voting. As you said, take your own pen, take your own sanitizer, keep to social distancing as much as possible, and try to get in and out there as quickly as possible. Don't hang around there, don't lull there, and just get the process done smoothly and get it out there. But it can be done safely, as long as I always say, you follow the procedures.
And I think that the issue is what you've mentioned is probably more of a worry are the rallies around it, and not necessarily the day of voting, because hopefully a lot of the queues are outside anyway, and you should be only really going inside to vote. But at that stage, and well, at any stage, you should be well covered. Are we expecting to see a change in legislation around wearing masks outside? And I just want to share a concern that I have, is that I've certainly noticed that outside, less and less people are wearing masks. And because we are starting to do that and breaking the law outside, it also means that we're doing that inside. Surely it's better to say, all right, outside, as long as you're keeping a distance from each other, you don't have to wear masks, but make sure to wear them inside. I know the law says we have to wear them outside. I'm not arguing that. I'm not asking people to break the law, but I just want your thoughts on how you think we should be behaving at the moment.
So fundamentally, I go back to the whole story that it's all about vaccinations. And if we get the number of vaccinations much higher, and we get everyone to be more protected from double or triple shots of vaccines, then it's much easier to say, yes, we can take off the masks outside. But at a current rate of 30% in adults, and we're not there yet. And as you correctly say, by taking off your mask outside, you come inside, people are wearing the mask below their nose and not wearing it effectively. We're not there yet, and we still got to wait to see what's happening with the fourth wave. So as much as we want to drop sort of these, in inverted commas, draconian laws, which aren't draconian, which are actually necessary for our health and safety and looking after people, we can't do it just yet.
We're not there
I wouldn't
yet.
advise it just yet. And I'm not in government legislation, but I would hope that the government would, use their wisdom from the MACs and everyone that they get to understand that it's not time to do that yet. In fact, I did hear also today that someone was saying that they think that after the elections, they're going to make the vaccine more of a mandatory thing countrywide. And one of the things I've actually seen is a lot of sort of places are providing 100 Rand shopping vouchers to people to get vaccinated on the day of the election, which I think is genius, which I think is brilliant.
Absolutely amazing. I saw as well, there's a trial of some medication from Israel that they're trying out in South Africa. Tell me about that.
So that's Israel's oral COVID vaccine. That's the CoroVax Medical, which is received clearance from SAPRA, actually, which is our own body, to begin testing volunteers in a phase 1 trial, trying the oral COVID-19 vaccine. And this vaccine works very differently to the other vaccines because the other vaccines target the one spike protein. This vaccine targets 3 structural proteins of the novel coronavirus. So if it works, it's going to be unbelievable because A, it's going to be far cheaper, B, it's going to be far easier to take, and you can take it accessible at home. And I mean, they are not only trying it in South Africa, they are going to be start trying it. They're waiting for the go-ahead to try it in Israel as well. So hopefully this can be a really revolutionary thing, very similar to an oral polio vaccine.
Right, that really will be life-changing, won't it?
Right.
So I'm assuming there is good news.
Yes, so I think there's quite a few facets of good news. First of all, on behalf of all of us, we want to wish you Mazel Tov on the engagement of your son Alex to Liat.
Thank you.
We're very excited. It's nice to have some good news for a change.
Yeah,
the kids are going through exams, they're progressing. The jacarandas are out in full bloom. The sun is out, and we're living lives a bit more normally. And of course, the Reds have shone this week. Stunning 5-0 victory over our adversaries. 3 words: ole, ole, ole. Nothing more to say about that. And to quote, if nobody sees you eating it, it doesn't contain any calories. Wishing you a good week. Be safe, vote well, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Yep, absolutely words to live by. If no one sees you eating it, it contains no calories. I can tell you, I'm not sure that's the best medical advice you would ever have received on this podcast. Dr. Anton Meyberg, thank you. As always, I'm Howard Feldman. Don't forget to vote. Vote twice. Once for us, if you think we deserve it, for the South African Jewish Achievers Awards, the Absa Jewish Achievers Awards. And of course, get out there tomorrow and vote. It doesn't matter. Every party is imperfect. Vote for the least imperfect one. Otherwise, unfortunately, you lose the right to complain. Well, you don't really, but you know what I mean. You should lose it. Either way, have a fantastic week. Enjoy the outdoors, enjoy the jacarandas, and God bless. I'm Howard Feldman. This is the Sunday Synthesis Podcast.